All right, guys, so now we're getting into graphing and graphing linear equations and okay, everybody, now we're getting into graphing. So the first way we're going to look at graphing is by using your x-intercept and your y-intercept. So first we're going to look at number 1. Or this is not number 1, sorry, it's number 7. This is a continuation. So our x-intercept is 3. So on our x-axis, we are going to put a point on 3 on the x-axis. Your y-intercept is -5. So we're going to look at our y-axis and put a point on -5. Then we are going to connect the 2 dots and graph our line. Okay? So this is sketching the graph of the line using the x and the y-intercepts. It's pretty simple. You just plot your intercept of each axis, connect the dots, make sure that your lines end with an arrow because lines never end. So they have to have an arrow or that will be points off when we're tested on this. Now let's look at number 8. So for number 8, our x-intercept is 4. So we're going to go over 4 on our x-axis and plot our point. And our y-intercept is 2. So we're going to go up 2 on our y-axis and plot our point. From there, we are just going to connect our dots and draw our line. Sorry, my line's a little off since I'm doing it on the iPad, but it should be intersecting at y equals 2. Again, make sure you have arrows at the end of your line and you're good to go. So now I want you to go ahead and do numbers 9 and 10 on your paper. Whoops, I didn't mean to show you the answers yet. Do numbers 9 and 10, hit pause while you do that, and then when you play again, you will get the answers. And now here are your answers for 9 and 10. My bad, I gave y'all a little sheet before I should have. But you notice it's the same thing. So your x-intercept is -3. Your y-intercept is 4. And then number 10, your x-intercept is 1. Your y-intercept is -1. And on both lines, notice that we are finishing them with arrows. Okay? Now, slope-intercept form. This is something that you will use from now till you get to college. So go ahead and write down y equals mx plus b. Where m, what did we say m stood for earlier? M is slope, remember? Now, b is a new one. Your b is going to be your y-intercept. Again, there's no b in y-intercept, so I guess the same person that made up m for slope also made up the letter for y-intercept. But commit these to memory, and we're going to talk about exactly what it means on the next slide. Okay, so now we're going to look at these equations on our notes, and we're going to find the slope of each line. We are going to use y equals mx plus b to do that. As long as your equation is solved for y, then you can use that to just pull out your slope from that equation. So if we look over here, y equals 2x plus 5. That means 2 is our slope. What would our y-intercept be? 5, okay? So 2 is our slope. 5 is our y-intercept. I know the problem didn't ask what your y-intercept is, but I need you to be able to identify that as well. So for this problem, we're going to say m equals 2, and that would be our answer. Now, number 13 is a little bit different, okay, because it is not solved for y. It is a special case, x equals 1, so that means that it is a vertical line, and vertical lines have an undefined slope. Again, it's a special case and just something that you have to commit to memory. So if you have x equals any number, then that means your slope is going to be undefined. Again, it's just a special case. It's a rule that you need to memorize. So If you're asked to find the slope and your line is x equals and there's no y, then just write undefined. Now, I want you to pause your video and go ahead and write down the slope for number 14 and 15. Actually, go ahead and write the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so here are your answers for 14 and 15. Notice when you're finding your slope, or you're pulling out your slope, you need to use the sign as well. So since it's negative 4/3 x, your slope is negative 4/3. Your y-intercept is 5, and it's positive, so it's just going to be positive 5 or 5. Now let's look at 15. So our slope is 3/5. It's whatever is beside x. And then our y-intercept here is also 5. Okay, so I want you to take a second and write down these steps to graphing a line using slope-intercept form. Okay, so I'm going to discuss them, but go ahead and hit pause. Write this down somewhere. I didn't put a space on your notes, but you do have some blank spaces on this section of notes on the paper. So find a spot, write it down, and then hit play again, and I will go over all of this. So here are the steps for when you're graphing a line using slope-intercept form. First, you're going to plot your y-intercept. I will go through this in just a second on the graph. Then, from your y-intercept, don't go back to the origin where your x and your y-axis intersect. Start where you plotted that point in step 1 and use your slope, rise over run. So you're going to go up and down, then left and right to plot a second point. Finally, you're going to connect those two dots and finish your line with arrows on each end. Okay, so the first one that we are going to look at is y equals negative x. So I'm going to add some things that you can't see to make it look more like slope-intercept form. So y equals negative 1x, because remember there is an understood 1 beside this x, and then plus 0. Okay, so that's because, just to give you an idea, if it's just x and there's no number after it, your y-intercept is going to be 0. So looking back at those steps that you just wrote down, first you're going to plot your y-intercept to be at 0, 0. Then we are going to go through our slope. We're going to write it as a fraction, so negative 1 over 1. It's rise over run. So we're going to go down 1 because it's a negative 1, and we're going to go to the right 1 because it's a positive 1. You're going to apply, if it's a negative slope, apply that to the top number. Then we are going to connect our dots and finish our line with arrows. Sorry, it's so hard to write with this stylus on the iPad and still make it pretty. So hold on, I'm going to do that again. So let's go over it one more time. So your y-intercept is 0. So we've got our point right there. And then our slope is down 1 to the right 1. So our second point is here. And then we connect the dots. Oh, that one's better. There we go. And there is our line graphing using slope-intercept form. Now let's look at the next one. Over here, we have y equals negative 2/5 x plus 2. So first we're going to pull out our slope. Our slope is negative 2/5 because it's right beside your x. Now we're going to look at our y-intercept. What is your y-intercept? It's 2. So we're going to write that by your b. So look back at your notes you just took. So step 1 was plotting your y-intercept. So b is positive 2. So we're going to go up 2 and plot that point. Now, from your y-intercept, we use our slope, rise over run. So we have a negative 2 on top, which means we're going to go down 2 and then over 5. So here is where our second point will be. And now step 3 is connect your dots and finish your line with arrows. And that is the answer for number 17, sketching the graph using slope-intercept form. So now I want you to pause your video. I want you to work 18 and 19 exactly how we did. First, write down your slope and your y-intercept. And then I want you to graph following those steps. And once you've done both questions, go ahead and hit play again and you can see your answers. Okay, so here are your answers for numbers 18 and 19. So if you notice, your slope on number 18 was negative 1/3. Your y-intercept was 3. So when we graph that, our y-intercept is here. We go down 1/3. Our second point was there. And then we connect and use our arrows. On number 19, our slope is 2. Now, if you didn't have a fraction for your slope, you have to make that into a fraction. How do we make a whole number a fraction? We put it over 1. Good. So your slope is 2/1, and your y-intercept is 2 as well. So we're going to go up 2 first, plot our point. Then we are going to go up 2 again because we have a positive 2 to the right 1, and there's our second point. We connect those points and we finish off with our arrows. Okay, so that is the end of your video notes for graphing linear equations. We used our x and y intercepts. We talked about slope-intercept form, and then we graphed using slope-intercept form. Remember, you may have to go over this multiple times, watch the videos multiple times. If you have specific questions, please reach out and let me know.